not bad, you know. And Hangout is on live, and I'm here with Antony without an H and Tam. And if you could give just a quick introduction. Hang on, I can hear myself in the bloody earphones. All right, I had to pause that video. If you could give yourself a quick introduction, and we'll just have a chat and wing it, as I say.
I'd say Antony Sammeroff, Tom Laird. We are the co-hosts of the Scottish Liberty podcast. Antony and I met through the Scottish Libertarians, so we're both libertarians, and probably Antony can explain what that is if anybody doesn't really know.
We're degenerate capitalist swine. We want to drink the blood of starving children, working class babies. We want to suck the surplus value out of their brains until they drop dead on the floor. And I know that kind of jazz. Yeah. So we like money, greed. We're greedy. Greed is good. And
I struggle with libertarian though, because it's one of those identities where like that guy T calls himself a libertarian. Right. I think Sargon does as well, and it seems to me
not libertarian, bro.
Well, it seems to me that none of them can come to an agreement on what it actually means. You know, so all these people call themselves libertarian, and they all believe in different things. And see, that's why I don't take labels, because I can't be bothered with that. You know.
Right.
Well, there's a few different aspects to libertarianism. One is the cultural aspect, which is your sort of free speech, like just anti-social justice warrior, at least the modern form of feminism, if not the whole thing, and so forth. The cultural right to say your mind. There's the foreign policy, which is, I think it's fair to say, leftish, or what's considered, at least in Scotland, left, which is non-interventionist foreign policy. But where we kind of differ radically from the left is we like capitalism. We're for free markets. We don't believe in socialism. We don't believe in central planning or communism. We like we believe that individuals should should have the right to dispose of their labor as they will, and individuals acting as individuals can exchange and create organizations and so forth, but on a voluntary basis. And the only economic system which allows for that is the free market. That doesn't mean we agree with the current system of capitalism, because the current system of capitalism is a lot of the time government in bed with big business, handing out contracts to big business, contracting with them, giving them preferential treatment, giving them funds, corporate welfare, passing regulations deliberately to make it difficult for small businesses to compete with big businesses. So we're for capitalism, but we're for a level playing field capitalism where all interactions are voluntary. And I think that's the fundamentals of libertarianism.
I think there's a basic principle that most libertarians would adhere to, and that's the non-aggression principle, i.e. you never use aggression and violence for anything else other than self-defense, and certainly never for the political means. So I think when Sir Gunnar Verkade calls himself a libertarian, I know he's for the welfare state, and you can't really have that without violence, because if you know, the only way you can relieve somebody of their money if they don't want to give it is to use force. So that's the only issue with that. So I enjoy stuff, you know.
So two questions then. So I take it there's no such thing as hate speech in a libertarian society, right? So there's that. No. So, but the big one for me would be, would the NHS exist in a libertarian society?
We've got episodes on our channel called "What's Wrong with the NHS?" The short answer is no.
It wouldn't exist, right?
No. Well, actually, it might if people are willing to fund it voluntarily. You see, and that you can also socially ostracize people for not paying into it. You know, you can take a register if people don't pay into it. You can agree not to trade with them, or maybe some people will charge them more money for things and things like that. But that's all based on voluntary social pressure rather than forcing people at the point of a gun to fund it. I think it's really, I mean, the NHS is headed to a 5 million waiting list in 2019. So it's not exactly this virtuous thing that everyone makes it out to be. Like 25% of, well, I can't remember the exact figures, but people go in with ailments where they'd be treated like that in other countries, and they have to wait so long that the ailments are fatal by the time they get treated. We don't have universal healthcare in the UK. First of all, it's not universal. There's rationing. Old people don't get certain services, period. They choose who gets the transplant. Second of all, it's not free, because it's actually extraordinarily expensive to fund it through taxation, because you don't have any bargaining power as a taxpayer, whereas as an individual, you can always shop around for the best deal. And third of all, it's not healthcare. The only thing that is remunerated under the current system is sickness. When you're sick, a doctor sees you, you get a pharmacist will prescribe you medication, and so forth. It's sick care. The only thing that's remunerated is sick care. So when you've got a system that incentivizes people are getting rich off the back of people being sick, there will always be the kind of decline in health that we've been seeing over the last decades.
I mean, it's a question I've been asked before, and people usually say to me, would you get rid of the NHS? My answer would be, I don't think I have to. All I would do is allow private medicine to compete with the NHS on a level playing field. So if the NHS is as good as everybody says it is, then it'll be in no danger, because it'll obviously outstrip and outcompete the private sector at every turn. And if it's not any good, then the private sector will outstrip and outcompete it.
Yeah.
So I don't need to get rid of it. I only need to what's the word for it?
Monopolize it.
Yeah, demonopolize it.
Because there's stringent regulations.
Democratize medicine.
It's like if people can go outside of the NHS system, they might have to pay more. On a free market, the healthcare services will come down in price the same way as a laptop comes down in price, or your smartphone does.
I think it's worth mentioning as well that hospitals-wise, I mean, most good hospitals, 7 major hospitals in London, the teaching hospitals, the good ones, all pre-exist the NHS. I think Glasgow Royal Infirmary pre-exists the NHS. I think possibly the Victoria Royal pre-existed the NHS. So it's the idea that you need a national health system in order to have good healthcare, I think, is a falsehood.
Yeah, there's no way to give a short answer to a question like that.
Well, I did a hangout. This was like probably about 2 years ago or something like that, with Josh O'Brien and that guy T, right? Both libertarians, right? Okay. And I was the only one who, like, I don't take any labels, right? So I don't have a political label, right? Yeah. So I was asking all these questions, and of course, I'm going to mention it. The roads came up, right? We know that the roads always come up. You knew it was coming, right? My roads. But I brought that up because I think even though people say, "Oh, we always bring up the roads," it is a valid thing to bring up, right? And Josh and T basically said that people who use the roads will fund the roads, right? And my argument was, but what about in poor areas where the people just don't care? Why should they? How come their roads aren't their roads going to suffer more? Because I think libertarianism, and maybe you can correct me on this, right? But it seems to depend on people being good and decent, and we all know that not everybody's good and decent. A lot of people just don't give a shit.
Right. Okay, so I would say the opposite is true. Libertarianism has a realistic view of human nature, which is that humans respond to incentives. And the current system is the worst system to have if you think that some people are shit, because the most intelligent bad people are going to get into positions of power in government and not only have their own wits, but the whole machinations of the state and the ability to make laws for everyone else. The more ruthless they are, the more likely they are to get into those positions. So would you like to?
I don't know. I mean, I kind of would agree with that. All the things, the roads. Okay, is it a valid? It's for libertarians, and it's just like, oh, here we go, my roads. Well, maybe if we were living in a free market system up to now, maybe we wouldn't need roads anymore. Maybe we'd have the fucking jetpacks that we were promised when they were kids.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Maybe they'd all be teleporting about the place and wouldn't they need roads? So
yeah, you don't know what the actual economy would look like if the government hadn't built the roads. Because the government's built the roads, you look around and say, how would this society function without roads? There might be a lot more undergrounds and monorails and trains. There might be a lot more buses and mass transit. There might be all sorts of other types of transport. This has created what's called urban sprawl. Because you know, if they need a road, it gets put up like that. If they need a railway, okay, well, that's 10, 20 years for the government to deliberate over whether they're going to build the damn thing or not. The people, a lot more people might work from home. A lot more people would work close to their home. But the thing is, okay, your poor area, right? If you've got a Asda or whatever, they're not going to build a supermarket without making sure people have access to their supermarket. So the answer to the question, who would build the roads, there isn't one answer. There's all sorts of answers. Sometimes it might be owned by private individuals and there'll be tolls or electronic tagging. Sometimes it might be owned in the community. Sometimes the shopping centres and things like that will build them. I mean, one from ancient Rome, this is a really existing example. All across they had to build a road all across the top of Africa when they colonized it. So there was no way that you could maintain that length of road from Rome at that period in history. So what they did was they built olive groves on either side of the roads, and they rented out the olive groves to people. And the people who wanted to sell olives maintained the roads themselves. So in the absence of government coercion, there isn't one answer to a question like that. Who builds the roads? Whoever stands to benefit from the roads existing will find a way to fund them.
I mean, I recommend a book for anybody who's interested in roads. A book called Callum's Road. I don't know if you've ever read it. It's about an old man in Rassay who built a road on his own. Took him years to do it because he was just so sick and tired of the local council and local government not coming up with the goods on this road that he decided to build it predominantly himself. Eventually the government chipped in and built a stretch of it, but he done miles of this himself with a pick, a shovel and a wheelbarrow. So that's a good book to read if you want to know who's going to build the roads. But in an irony, by the way, the last person to ask me who would build the roads was a Green, and I thought, are you serious? You're a Green and you want to build more roads? You know? So so cheers. So we're going to have a beer. Is that okay?
That's fine with me.
No advertising.
It's a school night, so I'll not be having a drink right now. I'll wait till the weekend maybe. But so see this the idea, right, of a libertarian society, right? And just like all political ideas, they sound good on paper, right?
Yeah.
But do you think that it's ever going to be possible, or has it been ruined because of the society we live in now?
He's more optimistic than I am. I think I do what I do. In addition to doing the podcast, I'm leader of the Scottish Libertarian Party. I do what I do because I believe it's right in principle, not because I believe I'm going to win the fight. So I think it's an uphill struggle at best. I think people have had 50 years of socialism it's like domesticating an animal. You know, it just does not know how to look after itself anymore. And it terrifies people. The idea of having to not have Big Daddy state to look after them just has people shitting themselves. So it's a difficult road.
Right.
It's not an easy sell, especially in Scotland. No. So I'm not optimistic, but I do it anyway because I think it's right.
You say especially in Scotland. So is it more or less likely with an independent Scotland or not? What do you think?
That's a good question because it divides libertarians. A lot of people will not join the Scottish Libertarian Party because we're pro-independence.
Right.
I know at the last when it came to the crunch, when it came to the Scottish yes/no vote, I voted for independence on principle because it's a fundamental, basic individual right to self-determination. If Glasgow wanted to be independent, I'd be for it. If your road wanted to be, if you want to be independent, I'm all for it. So right down to the individual, I'm all for independence. However, it was a struggle for me to put yes, in principle on that boat, because the question was, do you want Scotland to be an independent country? Yes, I do, but I know that that's not what the SNP are going to deliver. Right? I know that, right? And I know it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. If Scotland goes independent, we're probably going to get, more years of socialism shoved up our ass. And this time we're not going to have Westminster there to interfere. So I think it could be bad. But I think it's, in the long run, it might be worth it, because we're going to have to go through it to grow up. I think after people have proper, that's no real socialism. I think after we have some real socialism, I think people might get, it's like, oh, you want ice cream? There you go, eat it until you're sick.
I feel so sick.
Yeah, I think that's how it's going to go. But
yeah, I guess I'm a long-term optimist or a short-term pessimist, or I think that in the long run, good ideas tend to win out. You don't see many people running around in a horse-drawn carriage or whatever. But the thing is, the problem is people, because this society is called a capitalist society, anything that goes wrong is automatically blamed on capitalism. People don't actually take the time to tease out the cause and effect. So, for example, your example in healthcare, people go, well, look at America, they've got a capitalist healthcare system and it's so expensive. But they don't look at the fact that you're not allowed to buy insurance across state lines. In order to build a hospital, you need to go in front of a committee, and people on the committee will be the ones from the existing hospital who don't want the competition. There's so much government involvement that makes it more expensive. So it's like that for everything. And the way that I tie it in is, one prospect for liberty is that it might just get too expensive to run the hospitals and the schools and all the public services the way that they're doing it right now. And at some point, they might have to accept some deregulation just to bring the cost of living down. That could happen, or it could go the complete other way. If you see anything that's run by the state is frozen in time. I mean, look, a school classroom now isn't much different from a school classroom 100 years ago, but every other aspect of society is unfathomable, because as soon as the government takes control of something, you have a group at the center trying to make decisions for everything. There's no innovation there. It's the free market. It's people, it's lots of different bodies trying lots of different things at the same time, testing them against each other, that acts as a sieve for the best ideas. And I think if things get rough, you can't, in terms of people living standards, people can't afford to live. They start ignoring labour laws, they start ignoring minimum wage because they need to make a living. And if that goes for a more prosperous society, or that gets things running again, you might see a more appetite for our ideas.
So short term, probably not good for liberty, but hopefully in the long term.
I hope so. We could go the other way. The government could go bankrupt. Everyone who's on welfare could go riot through the streets, and then we could end up in a police state. That could actually happen. Hopefully not.
What do you mean end up in a police state? You don't know what's happening on Monday.
Right, okay, that's a good point.
Sean Murray has said, sorry, he did say earlier a minute, sorry, I just must have to scroll back up there. This is the real life Bert and Ernie, so that's what he's calling you guys. Ragnok has donated $2. Thank you, Ragnok. He says, I hate to say it, but what's up with Scottish Weird Al? I think that's you, Antony. He's calling you Weird Al Yankovic.
I'm okay with that. Do you know what I mean? Weird Al Yankovic is a very humorous songwriter, and I'll take it. Do you know what I mean?
So
Weird Al Yankovic.
I've not been called Ming the Merciless yet, but I'm sure that's coming.
You're definitely Ming, that's for sure.
I do Ming.
You do Ming.
So if libertarian is the ideology, then right, what is the opposite of libertarianism? What would be the name for the opposite ideology?
It's got to be Marxist.
Well, I'd just say totalitarianism.
Yeah, authoritarianism.
Authoritarian. Right. So if you can imagine the political spectrum as a cube, on one axis you've got economics, which is either central planning or free market, and everywhere is somewhere on the axis. On another one, you've got foreign policy, which is interventionist or non-interventionist? Are we meant to police the world, or are we meant to keep to ourselves? And the third axis would be civil liberties. Are you free to say what you want? Are the police allowed to stop and search you? Can the government keep your files? Are you allowed to? How free are you to check up on the government? So
free to consume what you want in terms of substances,
drugs,
and all sorts of things. So a totalitarian regime would have interventionist policy, centrally planned economy, and very cracked down on civil liberties. And libertarian would be the opposite of all three. So it's kind of like it appears to be a mix between what is considered left and right, and the fact that it's left wing on civil liberties and foreign policy. Although have the left really been consistently anti-war? Have they been consistently in favour of civil liberties? Highly dubious. And what is considered to be right wing on economics, which is more capitalist, more free market. But have the right ever really been for free markets, or have they always advocated for crony capitalism, tariffs on imports, subsidies to keep national industries alive, and handouts for cronies? So we could take the political spectrum apart, basically.
Yeah.
We're a third thing. Libertarianism has its own ideological lineage. It has similar ancestors to both socialism and conservatism. Things go back to Adam Smith, John Locke, similar philosophers. They all start in the same places, but our lineage kind of got snuffed out a bit in the 20th century. There was something called a classic liberal, which is the progenitor of a libertarian, but they kind of got squeezed out of the political spectrum in the 20th century when the Marxists were fighting against the Nazis, the fascists. And it was thought that liberalism was old-fashioned. It was thought that liberalism was old-fashioned, and you either had to be a communist or a fascist to be forward-looking.
So you take over tomorrow, right? Tomorrow, Scotland becomes a libertarian country, right?
Right.
Am I allowed to own a gun?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
What would be the reason? What would be the justification for me being allowed to own a gun? Would it be?
Okay, sorry, carry on.
I was just going to say, would it be the same in America, tyrannical government, or would it be self-defense?
Self-defense.
I think you have a basic. It's both. I think you have a very basic individual right to defend yourself by any means within the law. You know, any means. Let's talk about earlier today. The law.
What do you think about that?
Well, I think about that. You can't go in.
Yeah, basically, self-defense is the most basic right found in nature. Even animals have the right to self-defense. You know, they will. Everything that's alive seeks to preserve its life. So self-defense is the most basic right, the defense of your own life, the most precious thing you have. So it falls from that you've got the right to own a gun, because someone could be bigger than you, especially if you're a woman. That's a great, or a weedy guy like me. That's a great equalizer. I can take you in a fight, Alex. So it's like,
I don't know. You look taller than me.
that's definitely an illusion. So it's basically the right to self-defense. But I mean, just logically, you ban guns, it's not going to stop bad guys from getting guns. So you might as well not leave the good guys defenseless. Yeah. If you want to help, instead of trying to ban the guns, you help people get appropriate training so that they know how to handle a firearm safely.
I think that gun control is basically gun monopoly. There's only two groups of people will have guns: criminals and the government. And the good guy in the middle hasn't the ability to defend himself from either or both at the same time. You know, so how would I prevent you getting a gun anyway? There's a guy, a guy in Monklands about a month ago was caught with 2 Scorpion submachine guns. That's got one of the highest rates of fire of any submachine guns around, and 1,500 rounds of ammunition. And that was only some of the arsenal that he'd managed to get. And that's in a country with gun control. So a guy shot in Glasgow today or yesterday.
If someone's psycho enough to want to do some damage. If they're not going to do it with a gun, they're going to do it with a knife. They're going to drive a vehicle into a wall. Fundamentally, we take, as I said, a realistic view of human nature and reality, which is you cannot fucking protect against everything. Sometimes shit is going to happen. A plane could fall on your house, right? The only thing that you can do is take all reasonable precautions. You can take out house insurance. You can take out life insurance.
Mm-hmm.
You can't stop some psycho running into a place and trying to shoot people, but you can make sure that there's some good people who are armed there, so that in case it happens, there's someone there to respond. And that, for me, the gun control debate is just between reason and evidence, and like utopians who want to live in unicorn fairy tale land where the government can wave a magic wand and make bad people go away. It's not going to happen. They, as you know, they tried to ban knives here. Look what happens. I had a friend intercepted, they searched her bag. She had a knife for camping. She was done by it. Is that what that law's done for having it? Is that what this law's for, right?
I mean, you've done a lot of stuff on gun control anyway, so you know these arguments. You know, a lot of your audience will be familiar with these arguments. So the short answer, yeah, you've got the right to defend yourself, and that includes having a weapon, a gun, if necessary.
So,
if you want
what would come? Again, I'm going back to the hangout I did about libertarianism a few years back, and the issue came up about the police, right? And I think it was that guy T that was saying there wouldn't be a police force the way we have it now. It would be like you would hire your own kind of security for your own community and stuff like that. I don't know if that's what you think, but who pays for the police, and who sets the rules for the police?
You probably be able to answer it, but I'll have a start. There's two first breakdown of libertarianism.
Yeah, there's two positions.
Anarchist, anarcho-capitalist. Okay, he believes in no government. I kind of hold tentatively to the position that you have a night watchman government, i.e. the only thing the government's responsible for is the police, the military, and the legislature, courts. You know, that's it. That's the remit of government, and it doesn't go beyond that. So in a minarchist system, you would still have a police force, a military, and a court system that was still run by the government. However, I'm becoming more and more inclined towards the anarcho-capitalist argument, because when I say, well, the government should only be in charge of that, he goes, no, that's the last thing that government should be in charge of, is the police and the army, right? Because they'll use it against you. So who would pay for the police in an anarcho-capitalist society then, Antony?
There's lots of different theories about that, and this is the thing. There's probably not one answer to it. So the question is, first of all, what is against the law and who's the fight? This is such a big topic. The honest truth is, I don't know. I've not actually stuck to one theory on this. There's some, if people want to know more, there's some Tom Woods episodes on this. But I would say again, the main problem with government is government can only react after the fact. So you get robbed, you go to a police officer, you get stabbed, it's a bit too late to call the cops, right? They don't even restore you to your, not only have you been stabbed, but then you need to pay tax money to lock up the person that stabbed you in a prison for, I think it's like 40k a year here. I mean, you might, someone steals a car, you put them away for a couple of years, you might as well just buy them a fucking car, right? That's how inefficient our current law system is. So it's not like our current system is so glorious. In a stateless society or a more libertarian society, the emphasis would be on prevention rather than cure. So you'd want to look at what social conditions contribute to crime and try and intervene early on. So like little things like people who are the victims of corporal punishment to a larger degree tend to be more violent later in life and so forth. So you could look at putting money in those ways. People might have insurance. And another thing is, in the justice system, it would be a restorative justice system where if you aggress against someone, the first thing that's asked is, can you pay to restore them to their original condition, so that the victim, because our current system does nothing for victims of crime, right? And if not, then maybe you're put in jail, maybe you have to work in jail, maybe you can choose between what jail you go to so that there won't be abusive prison wardens, and the prisons will be efficient because there'll be competition between them. You can choose which one to go to as long as they'll take you, between the ones that'll take you, and work off your debt to the person that you've harmed. Or if you're not willing to, then I guess they'll just put you in a room and give you some gruel every day until you are willing to restore the person to their... I don't
But
know.
then there's some crimes. There's some crimes that can't be like paid off though. If somebody kills somebody, you can't really. There's nothing you can do to repay them. You know.
There's nothing you can do to repay them, but our society does currently put a value on things like that. There's no. If I cut off your leg, there's nothing. If your leg gets removed at work, there's nothing you can do to make your leg grow back. But insurance companies still do put a cash value on that. So there are whether. You're right. You can't. So if it was a condition where you could take a murderer's life and give their life to the victim, then we as libertarians would click our fingers and say, well, you die and that person comes to life. But since we can't do that, there's a broad range of views on what should be done. Yeah. Some people believe in capital punishment. I personally don't believe in capital punishment. However, I'm willing to accept, in a completely stateless society, you're probably going to have a job, you're going to be a member of a housing association, you might have a mortgage or pay rent, right? Whenever you have to collectively buy things with other people, you could sign a contract, and your job will fire you if you commit a crime, or your landlord will kick you out. So you've pre-agreed to those conditions, and if someone wants to sign a contract, you live in our area, if you commit murder, we will give you capital punishment, then you can sign that. In order to live in that area, you have to sign that contract. If you by choosing to sign that contract, then yeah, okay, fair enough, to contract it to have your life taken. There's lots of different ways that these things could be solved. There's no one answer. There's tons of theories out there, and the reality would be the best theories would win out over time. They try everything out in different areas, and the things that work would be optimized, because that's how your laptop gets better every year. That's how your phone gets better every year. Trial and error, people try different stuff, and best practices emerge.
I think if anybody doubts the efficacy of I'm not necessarily advocating a privatized police force, but if anybody doubts the efficacy of it, all they have to do is have a look at you're aware of Alan Pinkerton, the guy that started the Pinkerton Detective Agency in America. He's from Glasgow.
Right.
This is way back. He basically is the precursor to the Secret Service and the FBI. This is a guy who started a private detective agency in America and became far better at detecting crime and catching criminals than the government agencies were. In fact, I think Abraham Lincoln took on Alan Pinkerton as his bodyguard, but however, Pinkerton wasn't working with Lincoln when he got killed, and Pinkerton maintained to the day he died. And this guy knew nothing about policing. Although other than his father was a policeman and he'd witnessed his father being killed by strikers, I think it was. But he maintained till the day he died. If he'd have been on his watch, Lincoln would never have been shot. But he was far better than any sort of government agency. If you look at something like crime labs, if you ask somebody what's the biggest crime lab in America, who's got the best crime lab, everybody would assume it would be the NSA or the FBI. Target, the chain store, has the best crime lab. Even FBI and all the rest of the agencies send their stuff to Target because you go, what's Target got a crime lab for? Because of such a huge organisation, the amount of crime that takes place in Target stores, everything from shoplifting to assault and battery to robbery to actual murder takes place on Target premises. So they have their own crime lab, and it's far more efficient than anything that the state had. So that's worth looking at.
I'd love to give another real life example. I can't remember the name of the organisation, unfortunately, but you can look them up. They're a private security firm working in Detroit. They serve a lot of poor people for free because, say, shop owners in the areas and things like that pay them. Unlike the police, they'll go round the street and patrol twice a day, check all the houses. If they see someone looking like they might be trouble, drunk or inebriated on substances, the first thing they do is they're all trained in conflict management and communication skills and things like that. First thing they'll say, they'll just politely go over and ask to escort that person out of the area. Usually they're drunk or on drugs or something like that, and they're happy for the attention. That prevents the problem. Now, they had some great innovations. There was a building where there was drug dealers operating out of one of the apartments. It's an apartment block, and the people hated it. There's several drug dealers. The police would not go in because they said it was too dangerous. This private security company put a notice in the lobby, notice board saying, to uniformed police officers, do not enter this building as we have private detectives posing as drug dealers, right? The drug dealers started getting suspicious of each other, got spooked, and all left, right? So that was innovation, that's prevention rather than cure. Another incident, there was this street corner where there's always these guys dealing drugs for years, right? Looking really shady, intimidating people. So one day, a van comes outside and stops next to them. They ask these people to leave. They don't. To get aggressive with them, he cracks one across the leg, takes two of them into the back of the van, drives off. Right. The next few days, there's no drug dealers on the corner anymore. The police approach the private security firm and say, "What the hell? You can't just go around disappearing drug dealers. Like, what the hell? What the hell are you doing?" And they're like, "Oh, we didn't. No, we sent two of our officers in training to pose as drug dealers, did a few drug deals, and then we staged them getting aggressive with us and staged taking them in the van and taking them away. And then they shaved their hair the next day and were in uniform. So we just staged the thing to spook the other drug dealers." So those kinds of innovations can happen. Who knows what else can happen? But see, when it's again, it all comes down to monopoly, and the government is a monopoly. And when you've got a monopoly, there's no innovation. There's just one person's idea being declared to the entire society. So
you mentioned earlier about laptops and phones getting better every year, right? Yeah. But that's the current state right now. They're getting better every year right now in the current system. So does that mean that the current system is working?
Well, the parts of the system that work best are the ones that are in the free market, are in the freest part of the market. So in other words, if they had have put the legislative controls on the developments of mobile phones and laptops in the beginning, that government usually does, we probably wouldn't have seen the innovation and the absolute.
And at least not the speed.
Yeah.
And it's probably would be even faster, like than it is now, if not for patents and things like that. Like Apple did not used to patent everything, but then people patent trolled them, and then they retaliated by patenting everything. So that slows down the gears of innovation as well. We don't really know what advances we'd see in technology if people were allowed to just freely innovate. But again, like electronics are relatively free market compared to many other industries. I mean, in some places people need a license to braid hair, and things like that. And this is bad for the poor as well, And when there's all these occupational licensing, you can't do this without a license, you can't do that without a license. And it's not giving people a leg up.
I mean, if I can drive a car and he wants me to take him to the airport and he wants to pay me to take him to the airport, I don't see why I need a license, a special license other than a driving license to do that. It's a contract between two people. People go, "Oh, what about crime and what about..." Well, most of the crimes that are committed against individuals by taxi drivers are committed by licensed taxi drivers. And people go abroad all the time and they get out of the airport and they jump in a taxi and they don't even think about it. They don't think, is that guy a proper taxi driver? Does he, they just do it. The very thing you're taught not to do as a child, get in a car with a stranger, you do it all the time, and not only do you do it, you pay for the privilege, So I think it's, just
you
let
pays
people...
your money, you take your choice. Like, the thing is, there can be third-party bodies that offer, like, people aren't stupid. Do you know what I mean? It's not like if you have got no, well, some people are,
Yeah.
but it's not like if you've got no regulation on who can do a profession, that people were just going to turn up and do anyone. They'll still come up and say, what are your credentials, where have you trained, etc., etc., etc. A lot more people would do training on the job, which is what used to happen. Like, one of the things that I'm really concerned about is school. I mean, the fact that people can come out of 11 to 13 years of mandatory education so fucking incompetent they can't get a minimum wage job means the government's just wasted 11 to 13 years of their life, right? Why? Because people who are incompetent are going to be like, why doesn't the government do this? Why doesn't the government do that? If people are competent, they can go out, they can represent themselves, they've got skills, they can get a high wage, they're the master of their own destiny. I feel like most of school is just a waste of people's potential.
Really. I mean, you've got a kid in school, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, don't mean to spook you out or anything like that. I'm sure.
No, I mean, well, I've covered this before about when the teachers were talking to me. This was a few years back, and
right.
she was saying to me, you know, you'd be upset if your son came home and he wasn't able to do his maths properly. You know, you'd be annoyed at us then. And I said, well, no, I wouldn't be annoyed at you then. I'd be annoyed at myself, because I don't actually expect the school to give him the 100% education. A lot of that comes from home. You know, I need to make sure he wants to learn. But at the same time, school's good for interacting with other kids. I see it more like that. You know, being part of a normal life, rather than I don't send them to school and expect them to learn everything in school. I think a lot of parents do that, though. I do think a lot of parents do that. You know, and then the kid turns 16, and the parents are like, "How come you don't know everything?" It's like, because you didn't. You know, you don't learn everything in school. Yeah. I know. I'm throwing all these things at you, right? Which are a bit out there, right? But it's because I don't know. I'm just curious, right? So
when you appreciated your curiosity,
when you were talking earlier about very small government don't really take charge of much, right? So imagine a scenario, right? We live in a libertarian country, right? And disaster strikes. We get hit with an earthquake, right? Mm-hmm. Fucking disaster zone, right? And all the other countries, they want to send food, water, money to help us out. Who is in charge of distributing that? But you know, any other country, it would be the government would come in and go, right, okay.
No, I think there's already massively efficient. If you look at the Red Cross, for example, there's an individual organisation that deals with a lot of natural disasters. They are widely regarded as being one of the least efficient charities. Right? They only get something like 40% of what they get in to the end user. However, that is still vastly more efficient than anything the state can do. You know, the state maybe gets about 7%, if you're lucky, to the end user. So there are loads of very competent non-governmental organisations that can deal with these things. In fact, most of the time, it's usually them that's on the scene first rather than government, you know. So I don't have any doubts that if there was any kind of disaster like that people themselves could handle it. And you know, we have charities, we have charitable organisations, we have non-governmental organisations that are set up to deal with this kind of thing. You know, I mean, even pre-NHS, we had things here in the UK called the Friendly Societies. They were usually run by religious organisations like Quakers and Methodists, or even Roman Catholic Church of its own, you know, thing, but let's not go down that road. But they had highly efficient healthcare, you know, available cheaply to poor people, in some cases even free, because most doctors worked maybe 1-2 days a week free of charge to do stuff for poor people. It just became a monopoly, and the NHS in a way destroyed the Friendly Societies. People resisted it. People wanted to still use the doctors they were using for the Friendly Societies even after the NHS came in, but it just became impossible to do so. So in a way that the NHS destroyed a lot of these small, very efficient little healthcare services that were available throughout the UK. So Yeah, I'm absolutely confident that there would be non-governmental organisations who could deal with these things.
There's a big difference between the incentives that government faces when we do charitable work compared to actual charities, right? A charity has limited resources and has to compete for funds, for donations, right? So in a free society, charities would be called upon to demonstrate that they were effective. A government, say we create a government organization to deal with, I don't know, heroin use, right? What happens if they eliminate heroin use? Everyone in there is out of a job. If they spend their money quickly, they can always say, "Oh, we just didn't have enough funding. We just don't have enough funds," and the government gives them more money next year. You're paying Milton Friedman, the famous economist, had a really astute point, which is there's 4 ways of spending money. I can spend my money on me, and then I'm inclined to spend it on the best quality product for the best price. I can spend my money on you, in which case I don't want to spend too much. So I'm not too worried about the quality. I can spend your money on me, in which case I'm not that bothered about how much I spend, but I'm really interested in the quality. But I can spend your money on you, in which case I've not got a vested interest in being frugal or in the quality of the product. And the government is always fated to being in category D, spending other people's money on other people. So we could get a lot more done with the money that we're taxed to supposedly help the poor. The other thing is, because charities or ground level organizations, they've got they need to spend their funds wisely. They've got the information on the ground. They know what people in those communities need. Maybe they need training. Maybe they need taught parenting skills. Maybe they need this. Maybe they need that. They can see them eye to eye and find out what the people in their community need and spend that money wisely. The government's somewhere, miles and miles away. The only thing they do is, okay, here's your welfare check. Here's your welfare. It doesn't matter. We don't know if you're an alcoholic, a drug user, if you're addicted to video games. The best we can do is just basically write you a check, cross our fingers and hope for the best. That might not be what that person actually needs in terms of support to better themselves. And a charity can be discerning and see who actually is willing to put the effort in and who isn't, and so forth. So it's really about incentives, and that's how I very much look at things, because I've got a passion for economics. But there's also the moral angle, which Tam's big on, which is, you don't fucking have the right to steal my money from my paycheck to give it to someone else, which I also agree with, actually.
It's a good argument though, because it is like theft. I understand that. I totally get that argument.
Yeah, I think most people eventually will agree. Okay, it's theft, but it's for a good cause.
Yeah.
So if I go into your pocket and I steal 50 quid out of there, but it's all right. I threw it in the charity tin. I didn't buy beer. Is that okay then? What's the difference between somebody who sticks a knife in your face and says, "Give me money or I'll stab you," or somebody who says, "Give me money or I'll throw you in a cage beside murderers and rapists"?
Right.
In my view, no difference, other than at least that guy who sticks a knife in my face is taking the risk himself.
Right.
Yeah.
And this
but
is
it's part of it. What do you think when people say it's part of the social contract? The tax.
Show me one.
People say that,
Show me one. I'd like to see a social contract.
Let's see the social contract, and see in a stateless society, if one will ever exist, there might actually be social contracts.
Well, explicit social contracts.
Explicit, but they'll explicit. If you want to live in this area, here you go.
Yeah.
If you want to pay with us to get your garbage collected by the same company as us, here's the contract. And then you can actually see what you're signing. The social contract, the intellectuals who come up with these wacky theories, harebrained theories like the social contract, they fulfill the same role that the priesthood did under times of monarchy. The priesthood came up with the divine right of kings, and they made all of these sort of rationalizations for why the monarch had the right to rule, right? You've got a class of people in the universities who are unironically paid by the state, and they're the core intellectuals. They come up with all these theories. Or if you don't have a state, the poor will be dying in the street. Or there's a social contract, and so forth and so forth. They're basically core intellectuals. If there is a social contract, let us see it and sign it so that we know what the responsibilities are on government and what the responsibilities are on us, and therefore it's a voluntary exchange.
I mean, I've no objection to anybody paying tax if they want
If
to.
they want to.
You know, there's nothing to stop anybody paying even more tax. I mean, if you think that the government does a lot of good with your 25% tax that you pay, then surely to God the government can even do more good with 50%. 75%, 90%. How about we all just gear money to the government, and then when we want a beer or something, we can go and ask the government, can I have a beer? And they can go, no, you had one last week. You know, can I get a pizza? No, I think you've had a bit much lardy. You know, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, so
who are these? Who are these people who know better than us? But what I meant to mention was it pisses me off about the socialists, the outsourcing of virtue. It's like, no, it's the system that's to blame. It's the system. Why don't you not buy from those corporations that you disagree with? Oh no, it's only a drop in the ocean. It's the system. We need to change the system, man. Or like, oh, you say you're an environmentalist. Why don't you stop eating meat? Oh no, it's not me. It's the system. It's the system. It's like people can always outsource things to the system being the one to blame. And the challenge for an individualist like myself or Tom is our political philosophy is not divorced from everyday life. It is a philosophy of your life is your responsibility.
Yeah, personal responsibility.
You don't have the right to demand something of anyone else. You can ask for it, you can pay for it, you can negotiate for it. You can provide value for value, or if you can't provide value for whatever reason, you provide gratitude, and that's an exchange, but you don't have the right to it. So given that, if we can all respect that our life is our responsibility, then together we can form organizations on a voluntary basis. Our interests are aligned. Let's form an organization together to further those interests. And even though our interests are aligned on this issue, they might not be on that issue, but at least we can create an organization for this issue, and I'll band with the people that agree with me on that issue to do something about that, right? There's no guns involved, there's no coercion involved. And I think that is society, because you don't think of society as like you smacking someone in the face, right? That's a break in society. Or someone threatening someone else outside the pub. That's antisocial. So everything the government does, if a private individual does it, it's considered to be antisocial. But suddenly when the government does it, a magic fairy dust makes it social, right? It's bizarre. It's the bizarre exception to the rule.
I think it really comes down to what kind of world do you want to live in? Do you want to live in a world where people negotiate on a one-to-one basis or a group basis for on a free and voluntary exchange of goods and services, free and voluntary? Or do you want to live in a world that's run by coercion and violence? And government is coercion and violence by its nature. It's the only way it manages to, if you won't give it money, it will force you to get that money. It will take you to court. If you don't turn up to court, it will send its policemen to come and lay hands on you. If you resist the policeman will use violence up to the point of lethal violence in order to subdue you. And I can understand, I can get my head round why somebody would maybe threaten to throw me into jail because they want to build a hospital, right? That's kids, it's for the children, it's always for the children. Any multitude of sins can be covered up by it's for the kids, right? Mm-hmm. So I can get my head, I disagree, but I can get my head round why they would want to throw me in jail for not giving them money for a hospital. But for a gay and lesbian arts centre, or any kind of arts centre, or a library, are you really prepared to throw me in jail because I'll not give you money for a library? At what point do you cut it off?
And as soon as you have the government, which is a body that's allowed to take from one group and give to another group, every fucking group is going to be vying for, we need our project. Oh no, there's no discernment, there's no philosophical basis as to what is allowed and what isn't allowed. That's why I don't really like Sargon. I mean, he's just not got any coherent philosophy. Oh, I'm kind of an individualist, but when it comes to these things, I'm a kind of collectivist. Well, why don't you either be a fucking collectivist or an individualist? You know, make your mind up. Like, so having a organization that is allowed to use force to redistribute wealth will inevitably lead to a situation of the war of all against all, where people are trying to loot each other. Everyone's trying to get as much as they can and give as little as they can into the system. And that is antisocial.
And in the end, you end up with governments who it's just a bribeocracy.
Exactly.
Governments say, vote for us and we'll give you stuff. You know, we'll give you free stuff. We'll get SNP are doing it. We'll give you free education. We'll give you free
Bribe people to vote for them.
We'll send out people to actually interview immigrants and say, how can we encourage more immigrants to come to Scotland? Because I've nothing against as many immigrants to come to Scotland as Nicola Sturgeon can put up in her house. You know, I've got no objections whatsoever. But to actually go and say, look, how can we bribe you to come to Scotland? Because we know that if we give you a house, we give you education, we give you healthcare, you'll vote for us.
And at whose expense?
Yeah, at somebody else's expense, obviously, you know. So, yeah.
So who is more in favour, in your opinion, who would be more in favour of waking up tomorrow in a libertarian society? The rich or the poor right now?
Well, I think if you just put it to people on the street, I probably would say the rich would probably respond to that. Because they might perceive, although I'm saying that, it depends who they're rich. There are rich people who are completely dependent on the state.
Yeah, absolutely.
Their businesses are completely maybe that rich person works for an arms and armaments manufacturer.
Yeah.
So he doesn't want a libertarian society. Yeah. I think possibly the emergent or upper middle classes would probably be the most likely.
A libertarian society is very good for the poor, but in ways that are not apparent to most people, because you need to have quite a good understanding of economics. The reason why that accommodation is so expensive is because of government. I've written an article on that called The Hope of Affordable Housing, which you can read on, just type it into Google, The Hope of Affordable Housing. Another great article, sorry to comment on articles, great, is called What Libertarianism Can Do for the Poor. It's also on the Scottish Libertarian site, and it goes through how the reason why housing is so expensive is government. The reason why there's so much inflation is government. We could be importing cheap goods from Africa, not allowed to do it. The government won't let you do it. So that means people at the bottom need to pay more for their shopping. You could get cheap public transport. No, sorry, you can't, because you need the license to start a bus company or to get a taxi. There's so many things on so many levels that the government increases the price of. The cost of delivering education and healthcare would be a fraction of what it is right now without the government. So fundamentally, libertarianism would be very, very beneficial to the poor. But the thing is, people have been taught to think the only way to help the poor is to steal from the rich, to give it to them. Now, I have nothing against hampering the rich when it comes to getting rid of government contracts and preferential legislations and corporate welfare and all these special privileges that rich people get through having a corporation. Like, they should get those special privileges. But people never think of our approach, which is, well, why don't we get out of the way? Because, everyone's heard of supply and demand. What they don't realize is demand, and on a free market, demand invites supply. What I mean by that, if anything's expensive, on a free society, the first thing entrepreneurs will be trying to do is go, oh, that's expensive. Everyone wants that. Let's find a way to deliver that cheaper because we'll make lots of profit doing that. And that's why computers used to only belong to rich people. Like, if you had one in the house, that was awesome. But now some people, every member of the family has a laptop. Why? Because someone found a way to deliver it for cheaper so they can make a profit. Now, that would happen for everything in the society. Where Marx went wrong, Marx only saw people in their capacity as producers. He was like, oh, we've got these capitalists and they're exploiting the workers, right? Oh, they're workers, they're just working. He didn't realize that workers are also consumers. So the capitalist system reduces the price of products. So if you're getting paid $7.50 an hour, but that buys twice as much more stuff, your $7.50 an hour is worth what used to be 15 quid an hour. And capitalism is really good at helping the poor by bringing the price of everything down.
I mean,
Mic drop.
I get this accusation, that libertarianism, and I go, right, look, if libertarians are such corporate shills, right? If it's such a corporate creed, I'm running a political party on a shoestring. Where the fuck is my check for Halliburton?
Right.
Where is my check for Starbucks? Why do all these big corporations plough their money into the big established parties like the Labour Party and into the Tory Party? You would think they would go, well, there's libertarians. They're off for the rich. Let's plough money into that right away. But they don't.
No one has heard of a libertarian.
I'm a guy who works a normal, you could call it almost a minimum wage job. I get about 16 grand a year. About half of my monthly wage is my rent. So I don't own my own property. I don't own a car. I'm not going to inherit any money unless my dad's got some money tucked away somewhere that I don't know about. When he dies, with me, my brother, the two brothers and a sister might divide the house, so there might be a wee bit of a windfall there. But I'm hardly a fucking captain of industry.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So it really bugs me, especially when people on the left talk at me as if I don't know what being poor is. Yeah. I've had to live in a shoestring. I still do it. I'll get to the end of the month and I'm in this. Sorry, forgive me, Antony, the Jew jar. The kind of, and with the other copers and that to try and get myself some messages.
Too much,
oh yeah, I admit it. Yeah, I would have even more money if I didn't go on the sauce. But at least I'm honest about that.
Like, that's fine. Like, that's your choice. You can fucking do that.
So you said you said there. Forgive me when you said the Jew jar, because somebody asked earlier, are these two Jews? Are any of these Jews?
I'm from a Jewish background, although
they go. There's your answer. Do you know? I thought it was going to be no. I just thought no, they're not going to be Jews.
Although I'm a irreligious heretic, a heathenist blasphemer.
All the comments from now on are going to have parentheses.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm not into it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't really get the identitarianism stuff too, but I mean, I've got a couple of friends that have enlightened me on the identitarian views, but personally, I think the ideas that someone holds in their brain are so much more important than their fucking identity. Like I would like to be around people who have ideas that are congruent with my ideas, because that will create a sort of harmony. I don't really care what their race, religion, or creed is. To pick up on Tam's point from the other side is there's this assumption that because you're poor, you should therefore be socialist, which Tam's infuriated about. And there's this other view that, well, I guess I don't know where I'm going.
You've lost too many. No more cures for you.
No more cures for me. Much. But yeah, basically, it doesn't, just because you become from a more privileged background financially or something like that, doesn't mean that you necessarily get all of the advantages. Yeah. Some people can come from a more affluent background, but their parents are out all the time. They're just left to raise by the TV, or anything can happen. There's all sorts of factors, or you grow up in this like private school world that's completely detached from reality, and then when you get out into the real world, you realize you're a fucking incompetent bum because your parents did everything for you and you never learned to do anything yourself, whereas your poor friend from down the street had to work all day and he's out fucking making 150 quid a day as a joiner or something like that. Do you know what I mean? So it's loads of misgivings about.
I'll tell you a weird thing. My ex-girlfriend whenever we were arguing, I wouldn't say a rabid feminist, but she's been fed the feminist bullshit all her life, so she's swallowed it whole. And like whenever we were arguing about gender issues, her entire argument, okay, well, she didn't have an argument, but her argument, in her mind, it was her argument, was, I wish you were a woman and then you'd know. right? If you were a woman, you'd be a feminist. And I go, like, how do you make that conclusion? I'm from a working class background. I'm not a socialist. In fact, I hate socialism. And I'm from a Roman Catholic background, but I rejected Roman Catholicism when I was in my 20s. You know, there's all sorts of things. You go, well, you should be this. Well, I'm not. And then they just turn around and go, well, that's because you've got to be different then. You just done the opposite. And you go, well, you want to credit me with actually having some free thought here, you know? Right. And there are actually some women out there, plenty of them, who are not feminists as well, you know? So the idea of just because I had a vagina, I'd be a feminist is just
women
mental.
Have no fucking idea of the disadvantages faced by men, particularly in the romantic arena. It's like they've got this idea that, because from their perspective, oh, you just meet someone, if you meet the right person, it clicks, right? And guys like look at them like, what the fuck? Like, I would never have been able to get this girl or that girl if I hadn't made all these fucking stupid mistakes with women and learned from my mistakes. And you know, it's like, no, it just happens like magic. Yeah, it happens like magic for you because you're the person watching the magic show. Oh, he just took the card out of his sleeve. Every guy who's ever got a woman, apart from the 10% who are just naturally attractive, fucking knows that he had to play his cards right at certain moments and say the right thing at the right time in order to spark their interest. But from their point of view, it's just chemistry. You know, I'm glad that you're enjoying it so much. Like, yeah, but you know, I love women. Sorry, I know everyone's going to call me a white knight.
Even if you're a cuckold next week.
But I've had very wonderful women in my life, but they can also.
Does your wife's boyfriend, does he love women? Sorry, I couldn't resist.
We do this thing in our podcast. No, we haven't done it for a while, but usually regularly we have our cuckold doodle dude of the week. You know, and we've had, you know, obviously Justin Trudeau was our cuckold dude of the year last year. But next week we're thinking, well, I'll spoil it anyway. We're talking about making Donald Trump our cuckold doodle dude because he decided to bomb Syria because his wife was having a greet about Burns.
Was it his daughter? His daughter.
Exactly. Daddy, if you loved me, you'd bomb those bastards. You know, I bet you Putin would bomb them for his daughter. You know, right? Okay, man.
Biggest mistake he made was letting her in the White House. I've said that since day one. She should never have been allowed in that White House.
In the house. Never mind the White House.
Just a disaster. And I mean, you can understand him listening to his daughter, but not as the president. As her father, but not as the president, you know. So I'll ask this question. I know the answer is going to be yes anyway, right? But I'll throw it out there, right? In a libertarian society, do we still have a national football team and a rugby team and all that? Still have all that, right?
I'm guessing so. I mean, if you want one, it just wouldn't get any government money.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's a lot of government money that goes to sports.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, you can have any amount of football teams or whatever you want, yeah, as long as you pay for it. You know,
people would have to fund it then. So it sounds like what you're calling for is almost like a society we have right now, only for the people to have like a vote on everything. That's I don't know.
It's the best. It's actually the best form of direct democracy because you vote with the pounds in your pocket.
Yeah, there's a difference between voting and spending money that is very critical, right? When you vote for a party or even for a policy if it's a referendum. When you spend money, every pound you spend is at the expense of spending it on something else. So you have to order the things that you want in terms of how badly you want them. And, you know, we're not perfectly rational, but we shoot for spending our money more on the stuff we value more. Sometimes we make stupid purchases, but broadly speaking, and that means everything's at an opportunity cost. So everyone is voting in a way, but they're voting against every other thing that they can. And how much money do they have? They've got as much money as they provide value to other people, at least in a free market. I'm a counsellor. If I see more clients, I'm serving more people. I have more money in my pocket. I can buy other stuff that other people have created. If I like to take August off for the Edinburgh Fringe because I write about theatre. So I'm less I'm hard up in August, but I accept a lower standard of living so that I can pursue my hobby in journalism. So it's really great, the free market, and people think of it as evil, cutthroat, greed, every man for himself. But it's a very social way of interacting, where people pay one another. It's everyone serving everyone else to the proportion of what they are doing is useful to others. And I wanted to just circle back to what you were saying about your ex being like, oh, if you were a woman, you'd understand. I'm wondering if there's a certain conditions need to be met for people to care more about the truth than their opinions. Because see, when growing up, like, if I got access to better information, I didn't always like changing my opinion, but I would be compelled. I'd be like, oh shit, like I found a contradiction in my thinking. I need to know more about that. Go on more on YouTube, I'd research it. And if I had to, I'd change my position. Like I changed my position on borders, I changed my position. I used to be a lefty, now I'm a libertarian. Like I changed so many positions. Why is it that most people, when they hear information they don't like that contradicts their opinion, they freeze up, they find a rationalization for their own opinion and they stick to it? And I'm just wondering, I think one of the prerequisites, but I don't know if this is true, so we can maybe put it out to the public for a poll, is when you're growing up, not having a close-knit peer group, being a bit of a loner, or not by choice, but by having to, because I think people who grow up with a close-knit peer group learn not to want to alienate their friends by holding on to popular opinions. But if you don't have a close-knit peer group, who gives a fuck? Like, I'm just on my own.
Well, I guess I was always a bit of a loner. I mean, I could be social when I wanted to, but I was,
Maybe I'm just doing, as you know, I'm a counsellor, so normalization, that's the psychological term. Well, that's what happened to me, therefore that's what happened to everyone. Like, if you're free thinkers out there, do you think there are, like, I think another reason why I'm very rational, at least I think I am, is because I had a highly irrational parent. So I think I needed to develop rationality to a fault in order to counterbalance that irrationality. So I'd be interested in people's ideas out there in internet land. Do you think certain conditions are necessary to create a free thinker? Because it certainly doesn't seem to be the default. The default seems to be people will choose their tribe over the truth.
That's a difficult one, though. That's a difficult one because there's just people out there who are so stubborn. You know, they come from all different groups, whether they're feminists or Black Lives Matter or whatever else, and they're just so stubborn that you can throw endless amounts of facts at them. You know, I mean, I had this the other day where I think it was Occupy, some Democrat page on Facebook, you know, and they put out this video of Donald Trump, and they said, "Look at this man mocking a disabled man." You know, you probably heard that all before. Look at this, he's mocking a disabled. How could anybody vote for him? And I went on there and I said, look, he's not mocking him because he's disabled. He's mocking him because he's a lying piece of shit. And I said, disabled people are not above mockery. But of course they came back and they said, no, he's mocking him because he's disabled. So then you link them to a video showing him mocking people over the years in the exact same way, people who are not disabled, and you say, look, that's how he mocks people, including himself. He's mocked himself like that. So he's not doing it because he's disabled, but they don't want to hear it. They're so rigid. They stick to that, even though you've shown them evidence, cast iron evidence that they're wrong. They don't want to hear it. And it's the same with the wage gap with feminists. They don't want to hear it. So I don't know how you make a free thinker. As we know, I've got a young boy, and I do everything to make him. I don't tell him what to think. I try to tell him how to think. You know, like
so
you must. Like my dad taught me that you must question everything. I mean, and you must keep questioning everything. You know, and you're not always going to like the answer, but you must question everything. Like I've been doing with you guys tonight. I just question, you know, everything, and it's so important. But how do you do that with people you don't know? You just can't wake them up, man. You can't do it.
I think we were talking about this earlier today. We were actually talking about Mary Black.
Right.
You know, the SNP. Okay. Now, Mary Black is convinced in her head that people don't like her because she's got a vagina. Okay?
And she said, like,
And
sorry.
that's why people don't like it. It couldn't be just because they don't like what she's saying and because she might be an arsehole. That's don't I handle that, right? I don't want to know that I might be a dick. So it's easier to hide behind my genitalia and say, you don't like me because I'm a woman. It's easier to process that. It feels better than saying people just don't like me, because then you would need to deal with that.
Yes, it's the same. It's the same thing to do with dismissing people. Because if she can say the only reason people think that is because I'm a woman or because I'm gay, she doesn't need to come up with an argument. And it's the same way when people say, "Oh, you're a Russian bot." They don't need to come up with an argument. They can just say you're a troll, you're a Russian, and it's an easy way out. It's an easy escape for her, and that just shows you the female privilege, by the way, because men don't have that. Men can't say the only reason they disagree with me is because I'm a man. Men can't say that. People just laugh. But do you know who she reminds me of? Do you know why I don't like her? Because she reminds me of Tommy Sheridan. The way she talks, that fucking does my head in. The way she speaks, man.
I think she's studied at the Tommy Sheridan School of Rhetoric.
And I feel like, I even feel like having her views was normal and acceptable in, say, the late 90s or Bush era, because we didn't have such good access to information, albeit on YouTube and things like that. But her views belong relegated to history. And I know that they're quite common in Scotland, but I'm so detached from that because I don't talk to people who have those views very often anymore. I'm almost shocked and surprised, did you just walk out of the 80s, or are you protesting Thatcher or something like that? Because since then, we have seen such evidence in favor of views like ours, like the mass destruction of, pulling people out of poverty in India, Indonesia, Bangladesh, China, because they moved more towards market economies and things like that. She's an old school lefty, and she's 8 or so years younger than me. But I think and then on the identity politics point, right? They think if someone starts taking the piss out of them for being a woman or being gay, they're being somehow differently treated. But the truth is, it's actually often a good sign that you're being equally treated, because normal interactions between men involve hazing, right? If you're ginger, you're the ginger one. If you're fat, you're the fatty. If you're specky, you're specky. We like men. We will fucking... my hairline recedeth unto eternity, okay? Whatever it is, I'm sure, whatever it is, we'll find something to take the piss out of you and see if you stand your ground or not. So when a woman gets made fun of for being a woman or for being a dyke, it's like, welcome to the club. We're going to test your resistance and see if you get pissed off. And if you get pissed off, we'll do it more. But if you have a witty comeback, then
you'll get respect. But the problem is though, is that she's not using it when she's being attacked because she's a woman. Right. She's using it when she's being attacked for everything. Right. And I think that's the problem. But I also think it's a sneaky way to protect her from future criticism from the media, because how many journalists, right, have thought, I don't agree with what she said, but I better not say that because people will call me a misogynist and a homophobe.
These words are losing all meaning now. Gradually, being called these things means not I got lambasted by a bunch of feminists. I don't know how long, when I was at uni, right, on Facebook. But this is before the whole social justice warrior phenomenon had taken off, right? It was fucking scary the way they piled on, and I felt very insecure about posting anything controversial on my Facebook for 2 years after that. Fast forward 4 years, people start getting called social justice warriors. If what happened to me back then happened now, I'd be like, lol, SJW. But back then it was fucking scary. You didn't know if they were going to spread rumors about you around uni and everyone would think you were a sexist or think something bad about you that wasn't true. you know, I was lucky to have a couple of, again, back to my cuckold ways, like a couple of great female friends who sent me messages at the time saying, look, Anthony, you're like the least sexist guy I know, don't pay any attention to these arseholes, and things like that,
Yeah.
you know, which made me feel a lot more secure. But I mean, I think we've reached peak outrage. There was a time when outrage was enough, but now people just go, ha, lol, you SJW, blah, 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 and they just dismiss it out of hand.
Well, I think they're good at always coming up with new words. You know, if it's, you know, they go for it, homophobe, Islamophobe. Then bigot was the word of the day for a while. You know, oh, you're a bigot. No, there's probably some other, Nazi, whatever. And I don't give a flying monkeys who thinks I'm a racist, a misogynist, a homophobe. I don't want to be any of these things.
No.
That's important. I don't actually want to be any of these things, but I don't give a monkeys who thinks I am. You know,
I'm going to say it anyway. It doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
Say it anyway. Even if you're not, even if you're the nicest guy in the world, they're going to call you racist anyway because you're white. They're going to call you sexist because you're male. That's just what they do.
And the more you'd actually backpedal and try to appease them, the more it's like a feeding frenzy with sharks. The more they will tear into you.
If you see
definitely
any ground at all, if you're like, oh well, I'm sorry, maybe I shouldn't have said that. They're like, well, you should know next time. Like blah blah blah. I just hope you know. You cannot give a fucking inch to these people. Like, they smell blood in the water like a shark. You can't have any weakness at all. And
the only people acting like fascists and Nazis is them.
More or less, like
that's the irony. They're the people who act like fascists and Nazis. You know, and we've got as you'll know, Dankula's getting sentenced on Monday.
Yes.
No, it's a farce that he was even arrested in the first place. Now he's been found guilty by a political kangaroo court. Scottish Libertarian Party are going to be there on Monday.
Oh yeah,
if anybody's in Scotland wants to go down and protest. Well, we don't know what. It's just a complete farce that he's even in court in the first place. But the guy could get 3 years stuck up his arse for what amounts to an online joke.
I think it's 5. I think it's 5 is the maximum. I think it's 5.
That's okay. That alone is £200,000 of public money.
Do you think he will? Do you think he'll actually get any time? I don't think
he will. I'm really hoping they just give him community service.
Time already served. Fuck it. With the amount of time it's taken him. No.
You would think so, but I'm not hopeful. I hope that he doesn't get bugged for it.
Maybe
however, I don't think so. I think that they've went to this length so far. I mean, 2 years, a trial that lasted longer than Nuremberg. I think they're going to make an example of him.
Right.
I hope not.
To teach everyone else to be on their toes.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think they'll give him that sentence. I think they might give him a year, which means he'll be out in 6 months. But it's still, so what? You know, it
shouldn't be. No, it shouldn't be.
No, it's not just farcical. It's criminal. You know, gas the Jews, gas the fucking judiciary. You know, if that's the stage we're at in Scotland, and you'll experience this yourself. I've experienced it when you talk to people about this. The amount of people who have no idea about this, and you go, amazing. Guys.
Amazing.
And they'll argue blue in the face. They'll go, that didn't happen in Scotland. You go, aye, it did. But he didn't really get arrested. Aye, he did. But he didn't really get charged.
See when I get arrested, right? The police were standing right in here, and I said to him, this is fucking Count Dankula all over again. He said, what's that? He didn't even, I said, you've never had a Count, you're a police officer in Glasgow and you've never had a Count Dankula? You serious?
I didn't know you get your proper bill.
He didn't know. For a tweet. I got arrested for a tweet. For a hate crime. I get charged with a hate crime. This was in it was in October last year. Okay. The tweet was written in August. Right. I just recently got suspended on Twitter, but it stood up on Twitter, this tweet, until I got suspended. So even Twitter thought it was okay. I got arrested. I spent the weekend in jail, and then I went to court on the Monday. Seriously, and I went to court on the Monday, and then after a few hours in there, the procurator fiscal just threw it out and says, "No, we've not got time for this today." and that was me. And I've not heard anything since. So, and this is for a tweet. What it was in July or August. No, it was August. There was a Pride march in Glasgow, right?
Yeah.
So and it was hashtag Pride Glasgow, right? So I put, or rather, I should say, to cover myself, somebody put, using my Twitter account, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Somebody put hashtag Pride Glasgow. Where's a Muslim with a truck when you need one, right? And that was it, right? And that's an obvious joke, right? You know right away that's an obvious joke. That is the tweet. That's the tweet I was arrested for. And I think the reason it was thrown out and all that was because I just said no comment to every question they asked me. So they didn't have evidence that I wrote that tweet.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't have they have evidence that it was my Twitter account, and you know, but they don't have evidence that I wrote the tweet. I physically wrote that tweet. So they really don't have a case. You know, whereas with Count Dankula, he's on the video. So they have, you know, they've got him like bank your rights for making a joke, but they didn't have me. So they put me in jail for the weekend. Friday night I got arrested. I got out eventually on the Monday. All for a tweet.
Don't they have better things to do? Like, I think it was a pretty off-color joke, but I'm not willing to.
Oh, definitely. But I've told worse. I've told worse. Far worse jokes than that.
I'm actually well known for saying the most un-PC thing just because it's on PC, so I don't know where I got off criticising people and making unpalatable jokes.
Yeah, I mean, fuck, it's too ridiculous for words, you know, and it would be a laugh if it wasn't so damn serious.
No,
and then when you couple that with the fact that, you know, Theresa May is then trying to make it a special crime in of itself to harass a politician. Well, they're not defining you're not defining what harassment is.
No.
If I go up to them and just go, hey, you know, what's that all about? You know, what's that policy about, you idiot? You know, you effing clown. Is that harassment?
You wouldn't even get face to face with them. This could be on Twitter. You could say something on Twitter, and that will count as harassment. You know. Yeah. But the thing that annoys me about it is that I don't want it to happen. But how come Frankie Boyle's not been arrested, and how come Billy Connolly's not been arrested? Do you know what I mean? It's because they're famous. It's one rule for the famous and another rule for all the plebs. You know, and that's what bugs me about it.
Yeah. It's true. Well, I mean, you could go all the way back if you want to make it historical hate speech. You know, you could go all the way. What really bugged was David Baddiel and I think Ricky Gervais have come out and said, they both come out in favour of Dankula. Graham Linehan.
Baddiel's a Jew.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Graham Linehan. I was like, is this the same Graham Linehan? Right, Graham Linehan comes out and says, oh, he deserves to get arrested. That's terrible. Are you the same Graham Linehan that done, are you right there, Father Ted? Which was a really funny episode. You know, when Father Ted's giving it all that,
it's really strange.
Why not arrest him for offending Chinese people?
It's strange with him because I like the IT show. I love Father Ted, and yet he's just a complete arse. I mean, really a complete arsehole. I don't know how that's, you know, I don't know how it's possible to say, oh, that's a bit of an off-colour joke when he wrote Father Ted. It does. I mean, it's just Father Ted is so offensive. If you're going to call things offensive, that is so offensive.
Well, it's offensive to Roman Catholics for a start.
On television now. It would get on television now.
Well, possibly right.
But a lot wouldn't be. A lot wouldn't be.
Yeah. I've seen so much television from the 90s that's archived on YouTube, and you just like regular chat shows and things like that, and you go, that would not get on TV now. Like, they just would not do it. And it's not a long time, 20 years.
No.
It shouldn't be getting worse. It should be getting better. You would think it would be, you know.
I remember thinking that when I was like 16, 17 years old, right? I thought things might be getting better. And I remember that it was that year that the police started clamping down on underage drinking in bars, which was obviously very upsetting to me because I was 16, 17 years old. And I'd been drinking in what be at the rock bars in Glasgow. It's like all of a sudden I got ID'd more when I was 18 than when I was 16 or 17. It's like I thought it was just like a kind of blind eye kind of thing.
I don't know. I think it'll get worse before it gets better. You know, unfortunately.
It needs to start affecting regular people before they get pissed off about it. Basically, fundamentally, if it's not affecting you, The vast majority of people just don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, it's amazing, like Tam said earlier, the amount of people, regular Joes, who don't even know about the Count Dankula case. And it's happening right under their nose, and they don't even know about it. And it's like, are you for real? How do you not know about this? This is like
big news. They don't know about it, but they'll argue blue in the face that it's not happening. That's just the Daily Mail. You know, you got to wish the Daily Mail would write something decent about it, but they don't. You know, even they stuck the boot in. You know, the Daily Mail. You know, so it's like,
did they? I mean, and that's interesting, because I think that we just take for granted that because we get our news from YouTube, everyone does, but actually we live in a bubble where everyone we talk to is quite well informed, whereas the vast majority of people don't get their news off YouTube. They're just really reading Daily Mail, Extra, The Record, and so forth. If it's not being covered in there much.
Yeah, but I mean, luckily, I mean, he's I mean, if there's one ray of sunshine, even he does go to jail, and when he comes out, I think he'll be a made guy. Do you know what I mean? But that's not worth going to freaking jail over. Do you know what I mean?
He'll get book deals. He'll get book deals and shit. If he actually does any time, he'll get book deals and stuff. But like you were saying there about getting your news off YouTube and Twitter and stuff, I think that's one of the things that could help people have an open mind, is having more than one media outlet. You know, don't just watch the BBC. You know, don't just read the Times or whatever. Go read them all. Go through them all, and you come to make your own fucking mind up.
Well, here's a question I'd like to ask you, because I asked Dankula this as well when he came to the Libertarian Students for Liberty thing. I mean, you do a lot of YouTube. Obviously, do a lot of YouTube. Where does it go, right? If YouTube pulls the plug, what do you know about where would be a platform? Is there anybody out there who's actually working or developing on a new platform that everybody could go to and go to YouTube? Get it up, yeah. Do you know what I mean? Is it
BitChute is one. I opened an account with BitChute just to have my name, you know, just so that I could get the name right. So, but I've not actually put any videos on it, because I think the way it's going here, I mean, I'm quite good on YouTube in the sense that I don't have any problems with them. You know, they demonetize every video, you know, until I ask for a review. But so far, I don't have any problems. But there's BitChute, which seems to be, you can comment on it. You know, people are uploading their videos on it. That's quite good. There's Gab, which is a Twitter rival. But then my problem with these companies, right, and I've said this before, I actually made a video about this, is that my problem is I go onto Gab and I go onto BitChute, right? But in a few years, when they get taken over by feminists, we're just going to have the same fucking problem again. We're going to have the exact same problem as we have right now. But the worry for me is PayPal and Patreon. They're starting to ban people now.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So I mean, if Patreon say, right, sorry, your views are controversial, you know, I'm going to have to think, fucking it, I'm going to have to, because people are nice enough to get, you know, to donate to my channel, and I'm going to then have to find another outlet. And then if PayPal say, whoa, don't like that video you made about Black Lives Matter, you're banned. Who's going to compete with PayPal, for fuck's sake? You know, so there's it's right now, it's not that bad that it's just Twitter and YouTube. Once it gets to PayPal and Patreon, you know, that's people's income, that's people's money. You're messing with people's money there, and that's a problem. But if I was kicked off YouTube, I'd probably make another account, and then if it kept happening, I'd probably then go to BitChute. But right now, I'm sticking.
Marlon has been kicked off of YouTube a couple of times.
Kidding me? Really?
I think so. Yeah, I think they shut his briefly. They shut him down. Stefan Molyneux.
Oh, did they shut him?
Molyneux. Yeah, they shut him down at one point. Yeah.
Hell, man. But he's got a lot of support though, and I think that's an unfair thing, because if you take a channel that's got 1,000 subscribers and they lose their channel, you know, they're not going to get a lot of support on, you know, they're not going to get their own hashtag. You know, I don't know if I'm big enough to get my own hashtag if my channel got deleted, and that would make YouTube listen and go, and I'll restore the channel. You know, because it happened to Sargon as well. Sargon's channel went down, and then he had a hashtag, and then the next thing you know, a day or two later, his channel was back up. You know, so I don't like that though, because that's unfair on the ones with not many subscribers. You know, it doesn't really seem fair that the big names have got like that kind of backing, but then that's what makes them a big name, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to reach new people these days. I mean, if you share a YouTube video on Facebook algorithms fucking hate YouTube. They don't want to send you off site. Like, I don't really know how to do it. I mean, it's like either you're big enough to be in suggested videos if you're not, or you're not. And if you're not, it's not really so much that content is king anymore, because there's just so much content.
Hangouts are good though.
Yeah,
you know, you do hangouts now and again with different people, and you know. But then, I mean, I don't know what the secret is, because if I knew what the secret is, I'd have like 1 million subscribers right now. But
well, you're doing all right though. I mean,
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. I've got 20 odd thousand, which is really good for me. I don't think that 20 odd thousand, half of them probably aren't even on YouTube anymore.
Right.
And they might have just subscribed because they won video, and you know they've not been back. But
how many are here in the UK compared to the United States or in other parts of the world?
I don't know exactly the numbers. I seen once, I think it was like 20% of my viewers were from the UK.
Right.
Vast majority were from America. A lot from Australia, and the rest scattered, you know, throughout Europe and Canada. I get a lot of views from Canada as well for some reason.
Where do you get the most accent shitlords? Do they come from England or America or fucking Canada, or where do the accents?
When we used to do that, when we used to do that.
I don't know, when you get somebody who just goes, "Oh, I can't understand the word you're saying," or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It seems to be more like Americans or Canadians. You know, like for example, like Russians and Germans, they don't have a problem understanding me. Maybe it's because they've got an accent as well, and they've already adjusted. You know,
Possible.
But a lot of Americans are like, "Oh, I can't understand this guy," and I don't mind that, by the way. Yeah. But what I hate is when that's used to dismiss what I say. That a few people have done that. You know, I've made a video and they come on and they go, rubbish, I can't even understand what you're saying. I say, well, that doesn't mean I'm fucking wrong, does it? You know, that doesn't mean what I'm saying is wrong because you can't understand it. And there's nothing I can do about it either. Yeah. I mean, right now, you know, us three right now, we're speaking clearly. Yeah. We're not speaking the way we would usually speak, you know, with the cameras off. I always speak clearly, and still some people are like, I don't know. And then you get some people are like, I understand you perfectly fine. I don't know, you know. So,
but
everybody tells me that Albert Einstein was brilliant, but I couldn't understand a fucking word they said. You know, therefore he must have been a knob.
But then the subtitles are going to mess up as well, because it's an automatic system. Which might benefit my channel actually, because a lot of people are saying now that the YouTube are checking the subtitles to see if you're saying certain things, and that's why they're you know, banning some channels. But maybe because they can't understand me. So.
White power. Sorry. What's that about YouTube?
White powder.
White powder. What's about the subtitles? YouTube reading subtitles?
So yeah, man, it's a minefield, man. It's a fucking minefield. But
there's no secret. I do think though that there are certain things that you can do. Like if you want to be more successful on YouTube, maybe you can try this. Be a really attractive woman. If you can do that, I think, you know.
We've seen your attempt at being a very attractive woman. It's fucking disturbing. Who done that?
That was not. It was a photo of me, and I put it through that app. You know that app that changes you to a female.
I didn't.
It's called Face App.
Face App
or something like that.
He was pretty much ready to crack one out. He's like, "Ooh, who's that? Is that the person we're going on a show with today?" It's like, yeah.
Sorry, Anthony said 2 bottles of Coors Light. He's fucking smashed.
No, I'm just recounting events from earlier on today.
So you put it through an app. I thought actually somebody had done that. I thought you.
No, it was just a poll. You put it through an app, and then it makes you look like a woman, and it makes you look like a child, or if you're a woman, it makes you look like a man. It's really good. It's a brilliant app.
Okay. I was going to say, sack the Avon lady. You know,
but somebody's already commented. A few people have already said I'm ugly because they actually think I'm a woman.
Right.
But somebody did comment the other day saying, "Oh, cute pic." And I was like, "Whoa, Jesus, it's strange when when you know that that's not actually you, and it's just an app that's doing it." But I mean, I'm not a bad-looking woman. I would if I was drunk, not that bad, But no, I wouldn't be first. I wouldn't be first choice. I don't think. No, but that would help with YouTube though. That's one of the things that. That's one of the things that definitely helps with YouTube. If you're an attractive woman, you will be more likely to be successful. And I mean, it's a shame for people like Shoe on Head.
Remotely attractive, yeah.
Aye, I mean, take Shoe on Head. She happens to be all right looking, right? But she's quite funny as well, So I'm subscribed to her because she's quite funny. I'm subscribed to Lauren Southern because I like Lauren Southern, but they just happen to be pretty, and that does help. It does. Yeah. It absolutely does help.
Yeah.
That female privilege again.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I said. So
even Karen Strawn puts makeup on occasionally. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You've had her on your show actually, haven't you?
I've had a few hangouts with Karen. I've had a few hangouts with Karen on different, like the accent shitlords, and I've had her on here just talking to her and. I was on a Honey Badgers once, but I don't think she was there at the time.
All right, is that Typhon Blue or whatever?
Well, I love Typhon Blue. Well, I used to.
Alison Teeman, right?
Yeah. I've not listened to her in many years.
But Karen's cool. I've done a few hangouts with Karen, mainly on the accent shitlords though. She's everybody likes Karen though, She's a good egg. So it's nearly coming up to 11, so I'm going to throw another question at you if you don't mind. It's a way back to libertarianism again. Sorry to bring it up.
Why are you guys still here?
No, that's the last question. No, it's a simple question, right? I think. Do you agree that the biggest problem you face as libertarians, right, are people like me who I think are a majority? Maybe you can correct me on that. Okay. Who happen to like the system the way it is.
Interesting. You go second.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm just saying I like this.
That's very interesting. Okay. My gut response is no, because most people I know do not like the system the way it is.
Okay.
See, if most people I met like the system the way it is, I'd actually be more encouraged than I am now. Most people I meet are dissidents of the system, but they've misdiagnosed the illness. For me, that's the big problem. See, if a lot of more people were like you or more conservative, I use that term loosely to mean basically someone who thinks, let's just change it a little bit. Yeah, we can tweak it a little bit, but let's keep it more or less the same. I feel like I'd be okay with that. It's the fact that people think the system is radically wrong. And when you look at the outcomes in some places, it is radically wrong, but their prescription is more of the shit that I think caused these problems in the first place. I think too much government caused these problems. So what's the prescription? More government. Do you want to take a different angle?
I don't know if it's different. I think that if you ask most people, if you'd have asked me before I was a libertarian, what do you think? Should we change the system? I would have gave the Dirty Harry answer, which is I hate the fucking system, but until somebody comes up with something that's better, I'll stick with it. And I think that's right. I think most people would go, I can't stand the system. I know everything that's wrong with it, but until somebody comes up with a workable, viable alternative, then I'm going to stick with it. And I think that's where everybody else is. I was like that. I was politically agnostic for years. I was politically active in my youth. for years, I was just like, look, doesn't matter what you do, you end up with a fucking government, you know. And I didn't even vote anymore until I got into the libertarian thing. I went, okay, I like that. But it is the last chance saloon, you know. It better work this time. I definitely think that a libertarian society would be a vast improvement, even if we just got it. You know, anything that can just get government back behind the ramparts and confine it and take less power away from it. I mean, even if you can do that, if you can just gradually dent, and hopefully get government back in its box, that would be a great thing. Even if we never got rid of government, even if we never had a completely libertarian government, I mean, I don't care. I mean, we've got a political party. We do stand people. I stood against Ruth Davidson in Edinburgh. I got 135 votes, but then she only got 4,000 odd. She only won by about 300 votes.
But you didn't expect to win, though, did you? You didn't run to win.
No. In fact, probably the last thing I want to do is win. You know, but I just want to be there and get the parties and say, look, there is an alternative. And I think my model for this, bizarrely, is the Greens. There's a part, I mean, I don't like the Greens, but what they successfully done is they managed, without having any real power, they had soft power, they managed to get the mainstream parties to adopt their policies. Right. Once they saw their votes siphoning away to the Greens, they're going, okay, why are people voting for the Greens? Okay, we like that. You know, even David Cameron getting in the act, you know, barking about in a dog sled up in the North Pole or whatever, and you go like, okay, they're starting to adopt green policies because they can see their votes. If I can somehow get votes away from the Conservatives, so that the Conservatives would go, right, okay, we're losing votes to the Libertarians, what can we do to get Conservatives back? Because the Conservatives party in Scotland, at least, I don't know about England, but in Scotland, I don't know what they're there for. Because to me, they just seem to be singing for the exact same hymn sheet as the Labour Party and everybody else. Okay, they might have a wee bit of difference in economic policy, you know, but when Ruth Davidson can complain about being called, you know, and I'm quoting, get called a dyke on Facebook, and you know, Nicola Sturgeon's up in arms about it, and you know, Ruth Davidson's well done, we're going to hound this guy that said that. And you go, what are the Conservatives in Scotland actually for? You know, what are
ultimately you've got a choice between big government lefties and big government righties.
Yeah.
Whether you choose UKIP or Tories, they're both big government parties. Whether you choose Labour, SNP, Greens, or any of the weird radical leftists, they're all big government parties. Yeah. So there requires to be a small government party. And we just so happen to be a mix.
Like, I mean, the Conservatives in Scotland are ashamed of capitalism. It's a dirty word in the Conservative Party.
There's no one defending capitalism in mainstream politics. They've just given the narrative. And at this period of history, it's easier than ever to defend capitalism. You just say, look at India in the 1980s compared to India now. Look at China in the 1980s compared to China now. Look at Hong Kong 50 years ago compared to Hong Kong now. Singapore. Look at Venezuela versus Chile. Look at Estonia versus, I don't know, fuck knows. Right? It's very, very clear which system is providing the best for not just people at the top, but people at the bottom. But I'd ask you a question. Given that you identify as someone who more or less, the system's not perfect, but it's not that bad either. I think it's creeping in a certain direction. I think that's why it's easy to be like, it's always a little bit more government, a little bit more government, a little bit more government. Okay, you're okay with the system. What are you dissatisfied with? What would you change?
I would have for Scotland or for Britain, I would have a constitution just like America that absolutely guarantees us rights.
Okay,
like free speech, and it would be very similar to Americans. It'd be very similar. It would have a first and it would have a second. But very similar. Guarantees us rights, and I want us as a country. This is why I'm against the EU, by the way. Yeah. I want us as a country to decide.
No, it's just because you're a racist.
That's right. I want us as a country to decide what immigrants we take in, how many we take in, if any at all. I don't want another country. I don't want some guy on my street deciding who moves into my house. Do you know what I mean? I want us as a country to decide that, and I want a constitution. I really want a constitution, just like America.
Well, it looks like the SNP are going to give you a constitution, but for what I've read and what I see that they're going to put in the constitution, I don't think it's going to be up to much. I mean, they're going to, they're putting stuff in there like, you've got a right to food, you've got a right to medical treatment, all these things that say that you've got a right to basically force somebody else to work for you. Or you've got
I know that if the SNP put free speech in the constitution, we know it would say no hate speech, and that just messes the whole thing up. You know what I mean?
Well, the European Constitution, European human rights say you're entitled to free speech, provided it's not being ruled illegal. Provided it's not being ruled illegal. Seriously, that actually says it. Yeah, I know, totally pointless. So you were going to say anything?
I know, I'm enjoying very much. So
so I think if you're going to have government at all, you have to try and cage it with a constitution or a bill of rights, something that guarantees your individual rights and liberties. The problem is, at the moment, most people have been brought up to regard privileges as rights. You have a right to life, you have a right to free speech, you have a right to things that cost nobody else anything. My right to free speech doesn't cost anybody else a penny. My right to life doesn't cost anybody else a penny, other than my parents, but it's their responsibility because they brought me into the world. Right? So, but there's other people who want to make, as I say, education is a right. Really? Are you going to put a gun to a teacher's head and say, teach my kid? I don't want to teach your kid. He's a wee bastard. He's lazy. He's cheeky. I don't want to. No, but it's a right. You've got a God-given right to education. Well, I'm sorry, you don't have a right to education, because that is something that somebody else has to provide for you.
Yes.
So, and therein lies the issue. But I absolutely agree with you. If we had a Bill of Rights and a Constitution, a written one, I mean, we have a Constitution, but fuck knows what it is, because it's bits of fag papers and God knows what else, but written in the back of beer mats. And it's just messy. We were talking about that earlier in a podcast we did with an American guy. The British Constitution, even the Scottish Constitution, it's just messy, and it needs to be codified. The beauty of the American Constitution, for me, it's a beautiful document. It's probably the most beautiful document that's been produced. And there's a lot of the Declaration of Arbroath in there. There's a lot of Magna Carta in there. The beauty of it is it's so simple and so concise. You look at the European Constitution, it's volumes and volumes and volumes, and it needs teams of fucking New York lawyers to work out what is and what isn't.
It needs to be very clear.
And that is insane.
It needs to be unambiguous.
I think the more laws there are, the more corrupt the nation is.
But the thing that was really individual about the US Constitution as a political document in history is the fact that it's the first ever political document that is individualist in nature. It says you have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Your happiness, your liberty, your life. All of history before that, what's this thing called the individual? We can't have separation of church and state, because if people say blasphemy, then people will go to hell. Oh no, you can't do that, right? The idea that the individual was a unit in society has never been codified in a political document before the US Constitution. It wasn't a thing, an individual right. You have duties. You have duties to your feudal lord. You have duties to your monarch. You have the right
to the church
to be drafted into the military if desired, and so forth. No, this is a document that comes along. You can only pursue your own happiness. How can you pursue someone else's happiness?
How confident are you that we'll get that, though? That we'll get a Bill of Rights?
I'm not confident, and not these days. Because, as I say, the hate speech thing would get put in there. They put hate speech in so that the the fact that it was a free speech wouldn't count, because then you go free speech, brilliant, but no hate speech. Oh well, that means everything I say is going to be hate speech then. But another thing as well, I should have thrown in. There's a lot of things I would change, but one of the things I would change as well is I would take the government completely out of marriage. You know,
Right.
I don't think that works. You know, I don't even know why they're there. What are they doing there? You know.
Well, it's a contract between two people, so it should have absolutely nothing to do with the government.
Exactly.
But let me ask you: are you prepared? Right. I'm not saying that you agree with it, but are you prepared to see sibling marriage? Are you prepared to see that?
What do you mean?
Well, if the government's completely out of marriage, there'd be no law saying that you couldn't marry your brother, your sister, your mother, your dad.
Oh, right. Well, that is, I suppose that's a bit weird then, isn't it? I mean, I don't think you should be allowed to marry blood. You know.
So that wouldn't take the government completely out of marriage, then?
It wouldn't. No, but then I think that's more morally thing. You know what I mean? You'd think people would be decent enough to not want to marry their own mothers and stuff.
There's a big movement, and there was actually a petition put before the Scottish Parliament about 2 years ago for sibling marriage. And
what the hell?
This
what does
is
that
true.
say about us, man?
The Scottish Parliament rejected it outright. It's interesting what they said, though. They said there's no public appetite for this.
Interesting.
There you go. This is morally repugnant, or this is
right. Democratically, if there was if most people voted in favour of it, but then again, that's the government getting involved, so it's a tricky one. But I just think the government should be out of it. You know, certainly not in it as much as they are now. You know, maybe just in it enough to prevent sibling marriage, maybe. But other than that,
why shouldn't siblings? I mean, I think it's icky. I think it's horrible. I can't even think of it. But however, lots of people used to feel that way about gay marriage, right? Some people in my parents' generation still feel that way about gay marriage. Mm-hmm. So, what is it about sibling marriage that you think is? I mean, I take it you're not a religious person. So, I mean, like, well, there you go.
It's the blood. It's the blood. That's as simple as that. It's the blood. You shouldn't be marrying.
What if they're infertile?
Well, marrying blood, maybe I could come to terms with, so long as there was no sex involved. It's the sex thing.
But hang on a second. If two brothers got married, how is there a problem?
That's fucking gross.
You're not going to produce. You're not going to produce.
No, but it's still blood. So it's a bit. It's a bit
icky. That's what you're saying.
It's hard to come to terms with. I mean, it's like, see, you know the argument with sex dolls, right? Yeah. Now I'm totally in favour of them, but then somebody says, but what if they want to make a dog, a sex toy dog? Then you're like, well, wait a minute, they should be allowed to do it, but it's not, because nobody's been hurt. But at the same time, it's a bit icky. It's a bit, whoa, that's a bit weird, you know. So it's a bit like that. I don't really. I'd rather it didn't happen, but I'd have to be consistent and say, well, if those grown adults want to do that, you know, if that's what they want to do as grown adults, then go for it, man. But I don't want to know about it. I don't want the details. You know, I don't want you to tell me about it. You know, so
you're just sibling-phobic, is what you are.
I think that's what it is. Right. Well, I'll leave it there. Then thanks for taking the time, and to Antony as well, who
it's been great, man. I've been dying to get on your show for a long time. I'm a huge fan, actually. I love that. I'll miss the animations that you used to do. You know,
I know people keep asking for them, but I was thinking more likely to bring, rather than gender studies, make it like a leftist studies type of class. You know what I mean, or Marxist studies, something like that.
Yeah,
but
I look forward to that.
I'll also change the title to discussing libertarianism. Is that okay with you? Because that's what we talked about mostly, right?
Sure. Okay, fair enough.
People know.
Are we still broadcasting?
Yeah.
Yes. I'm just going to put it off right now. So
because I want to say bye, obviously.
Okay, right. Say bye then. Right. Thanks, everyone. Guys. Thanks for being on. Appreciate it. Thanks to everyone in the chat. Right. Bye.
Oh man, yeah, I had a fucking great time.
That was good. Yeah.
Well, I left off as well.
Yeah.
I thought he'd said goodbye.
Well, he kind of did when you were at the toilet. He said goodbye to Antony as well, yeah. But I didn't know how long you were going to be, and you were just getting progressive. But thankfully, there's no more beer, because your combination of tiredness and drunkenness. But you held out quite well.
I thought it was still very articulate when I made a point, even after getting a bit pitched.
Just the light.
It's just outside of the ring. But I know I was getting more drunk, but I think when I had a point to make, I still made it quite well.
Yeah.
And it was just a fucking great time. Do you know what I mean? I'll just send him a little message to say thanks on Twitter now.